Before we dive into tonight's story, tell me this. If you had the chance to write a letter to an alpha king, what would you ask for? Protection, power, or maybe, true love? Drop your answer in the comments. I can't wait to see what you'd write. The candle burned low in the corner of the small, drafty room, its flickering light fighting against the darkness that crept in through cracks in the wooden walls. A child's hand, small and trembling, clutched a broken pencil. Her tongue peeked out in concentration as she tried to press the blunt lead into the rough scrap of paper. Every stroke was crooked, every word uneven, but her determination made each letter more powerful than any polished scroll from the council. Her name was Lily, and though she was only 10, she had already learned what most pups shouldn't know, that sometimes the people meant to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. She whispered as she wrote, as though speaking the words aloud could lend her courage. Dear Alpha King, please read this. It's really important. Her eyes watered, but she blinked the tears away before they smudged the page. She didn't have another sheet. This was all she had, paper scavenged from the corner of the pack house where old records were discarded. Her pencil moved slowly, painfully. My sister Alara takes care of me. She gives me her food when I am hungry and sings to me when I cry at night. She tries to hide the bruises, but I see them. Please, Alpha King, can you help us? She is so tired, and I'm scared she will break. The candle sputtered as though it felt the weight of her plea. She thought about her sister then, Alara, who had hands roughened by endless chores, who carried trays of food to wolves that sneered at her, who bowed her head when the pack called her traitor's daughter. Alara never complained, never fought back, only held Lily tighter at night when the whispers grew too cruel. Lily's little hand shook harder as she tried to finish. If you come, please don't tell her I wrote. She thinks no one cares about us, but I believe you will. You are strong. You are king. Please, please save my sister. Her pencil snapped. She stared at the broken stub and felt her chest ache, terrified that without those last words, the letter would mean nothing. But when she read it back, her child's voice cracking in the empty room, she knew it was enough. She folded the page carefully, as though it were treasure, and slid it into an envelope so wrinkled it barely held together. On the front, in large, uneven letters, she wrote, "For the Alpha King." Getting it delivered would be harder. Omegas weren't allowed near the couriers. But Lily had grown used to slipping through shadows. She clutched the envelope to her chest and whispered a prayer to the moon goddess that someone, anyone, would carry her words to the one wolf powerful enough to listen. Far away, in the grand fortress of the Silver Fang throne, Alpha King Kalen paced his study like a caged beast. The fire roared in the hearth, but it did nothing to ease the restlessness thrumming in his blood. His counsel had pressed him again that morning, choose a Luna. Secure the bloodline. As though choosing a mate was as simple as picking the ripest fruit from a tree. His wolf snarled at the very thought, rejecting every name the council placed before him. He rubbed his temples, weary of politics, when a knock came at the door. His beta entered, holding out a tattered envelope. It arrived with the merchant caravan, my king. The sender is unknown. Kalen frowned. His pack dealt in contracts and alliances, not childish scraps of paper. But something about the crude handwriting on the front caught his attention. He broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The first line froze him. Dear Alpha King, please read this. It's really important. The words were clumsy, the letters crooked, but the honesty hit him harder than any blade. As his eyes traced the shaky sentences, something stirred inside him, something his wolf had been silent about for far too long. He felt the ache of a child's desperation, the devotion in her plea for her sister, and the faint, lingering scent that clung to the paper. His wolf snapped awake with a growl, pacing, restless. By the time he finished reading, Kalen's jaw was tight, his golden eyes burning like embers. Who sent this? He demanded, The beta shifted uneasily. It was slipped into the caravan's mail. No name. Just a destination. Kalen's wolf howled in his mind, fierce and insistent. He gripped the letter so hard the paper crumpled. There was no logic in his reaction, no reason for his heart to race. And yet, he knew. Somewhere out there, beyond his fortress walls, a girl with silver eyes and too many burdens was waiting. She didn't know it yet, but she was his. And no one, no pack, no cruel alpha, no scheming council, would keep her from him. The morning came too soon. Dawn's gray light slipped through the cracks of the packhouse window, brushing over Alara's face as she stirred awake. Her body ached from sleeping on the thin, lumpy mattress stuffed with straw, but the soft sound of her sister's breathing steadied her heart. Lily was curled against her side, the covers pulled high to her chin. Even in sleep, the child's brow furrowed as if she feared what awaited them beyond the walls of this cramped room. Alara brushed a strand of tangled hair from Lily's forehead and kissed her softly. "Rest, little one. I'll handle today." It was the promise she made every morning, though she never truly knew how she would keep it. The pack despised them. To most, Alara was nothing more than the daughter of traitors, the shame of a line that had once betrayed the Silvermoon Alpha. Her parents were long gone, banished, perhaps killed, but the stain of their supposed crime clung to her like rot. No one cared that she had been barely a child when it happened. No one cared that Lily hadn't even been born yet. They carried the punishment all the same. By the time the first howl signaled the start of morning duties, Alara was already on her feet. She moved silently, pulling her threadbare dress over her head and twisting her long silver-streaked hair into a braid. In the dim glass shard she used as a mirror, her reflection looked older than her 20 years, tired eyes, weary shoulders, lips pressed into a line too stern for someone so young. She padded across the cold floor, placing the last heel of bread by Lily's bedside. "Eat it when you wake," she whispered, though she herself had not eaten since the night before. Hunger was a constant companion, but Lily's needs always came first. The corridors of the packhouse were already alive with movement. Warriors polished their boots, servants scurried with trays, and higher-born she-wolves floated past in fine gowns, their laughter sharp as knives. Alara kept her gaze low, hands folded, as though making herself smaller would shield her from their words. "Look, the traitor's daughter crawls out of her hole again," one sneered as she swept past. "Shouldn't she be cleaning the kennels?" another chimed, smirking. Laughter echoed behind her like snapping whips, but Alara swallowed the sting. Her father used to say silence could be a shield. If she snapped back, if she showed anger, it would only mean punishment. Still, each insult scraped across her heart like claws. Her tasks today included hauling water from the well, scrubbing the dining hall floors, and preparing linens for the upcoming lunar mating ceremony. It was grueling, endless work meant to remind her of her place at the very bottom. But she did it all, hour after hour, for one reason alone, so Lily could remain under her care. By midday, her arms burned from carrying buckets, her knees raw from scrubbing stone. As she knelt by the long tables, she heard two she-wolves gossiping nearby. "Scarlet will be chosen, you'll see. The Alpha King won't waste his time on anyone else. Or Victoria. Her family's influence stretches farther than you think." Alara's scrubbing slowed. Even the mention of the Alpha King made her chest tighten. She had never seen him, only heard whispers of his power. To the pack, he was a distant figure of authority. To Alara, he was nothing more than a story told to frighten pups into obedience. A man like that would never spare a thought for an Omega like her. The irony was bitter. While every eligible she-wolf prepared gowns and jewels to catch the Alpha King's eye, Alara spent her days scrubbing floors and her nights singing lullabies to children no one else wanted. She wondered sometimes if the moon goddess had forgotten her completely. By the time dusk painted the sky, Alara's body screamed with exhaustion. Still, she hurried back to her small room. The thought of Lily waiting there kept her steps steady. When she opened the door, Lily sat cross-legged on the bed, the crust of bread untouched in her lap. The envelope was gone. Alara froze. "Lily, where is it?" Her sister's eyes widened guiltily. I gave it to one of the caravan drivers. He said he would take it to the Alpha King's lands." Alara's breath caught. Her heart thundered painfully in her chest as she gripped the doorframe for balance. "Lily, what did you do?" "I told him it was really important." Lily's voice trembled, but her chin lifted with stubborn defiance. "I asked him to help us. I asked him to save you." Alara sank to her knees, her hands trembling as she reached for her sister. "Oh, Lily, you don't understand. If anyone finds out, if the Alpha King even reads that letter." She couldn't finish. Fear knotted in her stomach. The Alpha King was powerful, untouchable. If he thought the letter a lie, if he dismissed it, their punishment would be unbearable. And if he believed it? She had no idea what that might mean. But Lily's small hands clutched her arms with surprising strength. "You always save me, Alara. Someone has to save you too." Tears burned Alara's eyes, hot and unrelenting. For the first time in years, she let them fall, holding her little sister close. The burden she carried alone had grown too heavy, yet in Lily's eyes there was hope, a fragile flame she couldn't bring herself to snuff out. Alara rocked her sister until she slept again, her mind a storm of fear and longing. She whispered into the dark, to the moon goddess she wasn't sure was listening. "Don't let him come. Please, don't let him come." But deep inside, where her own wolf stirred restlessly, another truth whispered back. Perhaps it was already too late. The following days passed in uneasy silence. Alara worked harder than ever, trying to distract herself from the fear gnawing at her chest. She told herself the letter would never reach him. The Alpha King had far more important matters than the whining of a desperate child. Perhaps the caravan driver had tossed it aside before even leaving their territory. She wanted to believe that. She needed to. But her wolf stirred restlessly every night, as if warning her that change was on the horizon. It came at dawn. The ground trembled first, hooves striking the earth in perfect rhythm, the thunder of riders approaching fast. By the time Alara stumbled outside, the entire pack was already gathering, whispers racing through the crowd like sparks. The banners gave it away. Black silk, embroidered with silver fangs gleaming in the rising sun. The royal crest. The Alpha King had come. Alara's breath hitched. She instinctively pulled Lily behind her as the caravan of warriors rode into the courtyard. They were a fearsome sight, rows of armored wolves, blades strapped to their backs, eyes sharp and unyielding. But even they dimmed beside the man who led them. Alpha King Kalan dismounted with fluid grace, towering over the crowd. He was everything the whispers had promised and more. Broad-shouldered, with hair as dark as midnight and golden eyes that gleamed like molten fire. Power clung to him like a second skin. When he moved, the air seemed to bend, every wolf instinctively lowering their gaze. Every wolf except Alara. Her eyes locked with his for a single, searing heartbeat before she tore them away, her pulse hammering in her throat. Something about that look unsettled her, as though he'd seen past every wall she'd built, every scar she tried to hide. The corrupt Alpha of Silvermoon stepped forward, his voice dripping false respect. "My king, what an honor to welcome you here. If only we had been warned of your arrival, we would have prepared a proper ceremony." Kalan's expression didn't change. "I did not come for ceremony. I came for truth." His voice was deep, steady, the kind that rumbled in your bones. The crowd shifted uneasily. Elara gripped Lily's hand tighter, wishing she could melt into the ground. This was her nightmare taking shape. If he had truly read the letter, if he had come for them, then everything she had fought to protect would unravel. Kaelin's gaze swept over the gathered wolves, sharp as a blade. A letter reached my hands. Written by one who should not have needed to beg for my attention. In it, I was told of cruelty, neglect, and dishonor in this pack. He lifted a crumpled scrap of paper, Lily's letter. Gasps rippled through the wolves. Elara's knees weakened. He had it. He had actually read it. The Silvermoon Alpha forced a laugh, though sweat glistened at his temples. My king, surely you don't take children's scribbles as truth? We have no such dishonor here. My pack thrives in loyalty. Kaelin's golden eyes narrowed. Do you think me a fool? Wolves do not lie in ink unless desperation forces their hand. Bring me the sisters. Now. The command cracked like thunder. No one moved. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Elara wanted to run, to shield Lily from the eyes of every wolf watching, but warriors were already parting the crowd, clearing a path that led straight to where she stood. Heart pounding, she pulled her sister close and forced her feet forward. Every step felt like a trial. Whispers followed her, mocking, cruel. Traitor's daughter. What does the king want with her? When she finally stood before him, she dared not look up. Her body screamed to bow, to submit. But Lily's small hand squeezed hers, and somehow that gave her the strength to raise her chin. Kaelin studied her in silence. His wolf surged the moment he breathed in her scent, wildflowers and storm rain. The mate bond struck him like lightning, raw and undeniable. His beast howled mate. So fiercely that it rattled through his chest. For years, Kaelin had endured the emptiness of a wolf who refused every woman. Now, staring at this trembling Omega shielding her sister, his control nearly shattered. She was his. The moon goddess had written it so. But Elara didn't see destiny in his eyes. She saw danger. Her voice shook as she spoke. It was my sister who wrote, my king. She's only a child. Punish me, not her. Something inside Kaelin clenched at her words. This woman was ready to bear the world's cruelty alone. Her defiance, her protectiveness, it only sealed what his wolf already knew. He stepped closer, his presence wrapping around her like fire and shadow. Tell me, Elara, who hurt you? Her breath caught. No one had ever asked her that. Not once in 20 years. The pack only mocked, punished, and scorned. To hear those words from him, the Alpha King, made her chest ache with something dangerously close to hope. Behind them, the Silvermoon Alpha barked, she's lying. She seeks pity to escape her station. Kaelin's eyes snapped to him, glowing brighter. Silence. The word was a snarl, laced with power that made even seasoned warriors flinch. Then he turned back to Elara, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You are mine, whether you accept it now or not. The moon goddess chose you, and I do not defy her. Her lips parted in shock, her heart stumbling. His? The Alpha King's mate? No. It couldn't be. She wasn't worthy. She wasn't ready. But as his golden eyes burned into hers, her wolf stirred awake, whispering a truth she had long buried. She belonged to him. The courtyard was so quiet that Elara could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Every wolf around them stood frozen, caught between fear of the Alpha King and fascination with the trembling Omega who dared to meet his gaze. Kaelin's eyes locked onto hers, molten gold burning into silver gray. He had fought wars, faced rival alphas, and slaughtered rogues without hesitation, but nothing had ever shaken him like this single moment. His wolf pressed against the edges of his control, demanding he claim her now, in front of all who watched. Mate. The word pulsed through his blood like a drumbeat, fierce and undeniable. Elara felt it too, though she didn't understand it. Her chest tightened, her skin prickled, and her wolf, long silent and subdued, stirred in ways that terrified her. When his gaze touched her, the walls she had built crumbled, leaving her exposed and raw. She swallowed hard. "You're mistaken, my king. I'm no one. I'm nothing." Kalen's jaw flexed, the muscle ticking with restrained fury. He wanted to shake her, to make her see herself through his eyes, but the sight of her trembling stopped him. Instead, he leaned closer, lowering his voice so it wrapped around her like velvet. "Nothing?" His breath brushed her cheek. "You carry yourself like a shield, protecting what's yours even when the world spits on you. You've endured cruelty, and still, you stand. You are not nothing, Elara, you are mine." The pack gasped. The declaration rang out like thunder, echoing through stone and marrow alike. Elara's knees weakened, and she gripped Lily's hand like it was the only thing tethering her to the ground. "Mine." He had said it so easily, as if claiming her was his right. Her heart screamed to believe him, but fear tangled with every beat. "You don't know me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know enough," Kalen replied, eyes narrowing with conviction. "I know the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. And I know my wolf has never been wrong." Lily peeked up at him from behind Elara's skirts, her small voice timid but clear. "You really came because of my letter, didn't you?" The mighty Alpha King, feared across all territories, softened in a way no one had ever seen. He crouched slightly, meeting the girl's wide eyes. "Yes, little one. I came because you were brave enough to ask me." A stunned hush fell over the crowd. Alphas didn't kneel, not for anyone. Yet here was Kalen, lowering himself to speak gently to a child. Elara's throat tightened at the sight. Then, Lily hesitated, glancing at her sister. "Will you take care of her now?" Kalen seemed to sense her turmoil. Without warning, he reached for her hand. The moment his skin brushed hers, a jolt shot through her, electric and overwhelming. Her wolf howled inside her chest, clawing against her ribs, desperate to break free. She gasped, stumbling back. "What did you do to me?" Kalen's gaze burned, but his touch was surprisingly gentle. "It isn't me. It's us. The bond is awakening, Elara. You can fight it, but it will only grow stronger." Her breath came fast, her mind spinning. This was too much, too fast. She had spent her life being invisible, despised. Now the most powerful wolf alive looked at her as if she were the only thing that mattered. Lily tugged on her hand. "Elara, maybe this is good. Maybe the moon goddess heard us." Elara wanted to believe it. She wanted to sink into Kalen's warmth, to let herself be carried by the strength she saw in his eyes. But fear whispered louder, fear of rejection, of betrayal, of becoming a pawn in a game she didn't understand. Kalen must have seen the battle raging within her. He stepped closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "I will not force you, Elara. But understand this, I will not walk away. You are mine, and I will wait as long as it takes for you to accept it." The weight of his vow pressed against her heart, terrifying and comforting all at once. She didn't know if she could ever let herself believe in love, but the way his eyes lingered on her made her wonder if, perhaps, fate had different plans. And somewhere deep inside, her wolf whispered the one word she had never dared to dream, mate. The throne hall of the Silver Fang pack pulsed with unease. Torches flickered along the stone walls, their flames bending as if they too feared the storm brewing inside. Every elder, warrior, and high-ranking wolf had gathered, eyes sharp, whispers slithering through the air. At the center stood Kalen, his hands still wrapped protectively around Alara's wrist. She wanted to pull away, to vanish into the shadows, but his grip was steady, gentle but unyielding. Each step he took toward the throne echoed like thunder, announcing to all that their Alpha King had chosen. Scarlet was the first to break the silence. Draped in crimson silk, her voice dripped with venom. "My king, have you truly lost your senses? An Omega? The traitor's daughter? You would shame the throne with her presence?" Alara flinched. The words cut deep, reopening wounds she thought long scarred. She lowered her gaze, wishing she could disappear, but Kalen's growl rolled through the hall, low and dangerous. "Careful, Scarlet," he warned, his golden eyes flashing. "The next insult you cast at her, you cast at me." Gasps rippled through the room. No one had ever seen the Alpha King so openly protective. Victoria, another ambitious contender for Luna, stepped forward, her tone softer but laced with calculation. "No one questions your strength, my king. But surely you see what this means for the pack. An Omega cannot unite us. The council will not accept her." Kalen's jaw tightened. His wolf clawed at the surface, demanding he silence them all with force. But he held it back, for Alara's sake. Instead, he spoke with a lethal calm. "The moon goddess decides the bond. Not the council. Not you. Me finding my mate is not up for debate." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Some bowed their heads in reluctant acceptance, but others muttered behind their hands. Doubt was a poison, and Alara could feel it spreading like wildfire. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't asked for this. She didn't want to be the reason her Alpha King's authority was questioned. The weight of so many eyes, so much hatred, pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. Scarlet seized her weakness like blood in the water. "Look at her. She's shaking, trembling like a frightened pup. This is your Luna? Pathetic." The insult snapped something in Alara. She straightened, forcing herself to meet Scarlet's eyes. Her voice trembled, but her words carried strength she didn't know she had. "I may be trembling, but I cared for pups when no one else would. I stood alone when all of you turned your backs. Maybe I am weak, but at least I'm not cruel." The hall went deathly quiet. Even Scarlet's smirk faltered. Kalen's wolf roared with pride inside him. Without hesitation, he pulled Alara closer, pressing her against his side. His voice carried like a blade slicing through stone. "You will respect her. She is mine. And anyone who challenges that bond challenges me." The power in his words shook the very walls. Wolves in the crowd lowered their heads instinctively, submitting to their alpha's dominance. But not all. An elder rose, his beard gray, his posture rigid with tradition. "The council cannot allow this. If she is truly your mate, she must prove her worth. A Luna's strength is not measured by sentiment, it is tested by fire." A murmur of agreement followed. Alara's chest tightened. A test? Against whom? Against what? Kalen's glare silenced the hall, but he knew the truth. If Alara refused, the whispers would never stop. If she accepted and failed, they'd tear her apart. Alara felt Lily's small hand slip into hers, squeezing tightly. She looked down at her sister's wide eyes, filled with trust and hope. And in that moment, Alara realized she couldn't back down. Not if it meant Lily would suffer the same scorn she had endured. She drew a shaky breath and lifted her chin. "Fine. I'll face your test." Kalen turned to her sharply, his wolf bristling. "Alara." She cut him off, her voice steadier this time. "You said the bond isn't a choice. Then let me prove it. Not for them, for me." The hall erupted in noise, shock, approval, anger. Scarlet smirked again, sensing an opportunity. Kalen silenced them with a single raised hand. His golden eyes locked on Alara's, fierce and unyielding. If this is what you want, then so be it. But know this. I will not allow anyone to harm you. The test will happen under my watch. Alara nodded, though fear gnawed at her insides. She didn't know what awaited her, but for the first time, she felt a spark of something stronger than fear. Resolve. As Kalen led her from the hall, his hand never leaving hers, the whispers of the pack followed. Some doubted. Some feared. Some plotted. But all of them knew one thing: the Alpha King had chosen, and the storm was only just beginning. The arena lay in the heart of the forest, a ring of black stone sunk into the earth like an old wound. Torches burned in iron brackets, their flames clawing at the dusk as the pack gathered on the ridges above. The scent of resin and steel hung heavy, the hum of voices was a taut wire ready to snap. Alara stood at the edge of the ring, palms slick, pulse loud in her ears. Across from her, Kalen's presence pressed like heat, unmistakable, unignorable. He had argued to cancel the trial. The elders had insisted. Tradition, they said. Aluna must face a test fit to measure the spine of a queen. She understood what they meant: prove her worth or bleed trying. Elder Marek lifted a carved horn. His gaze slid over Alara like a blade. By decree of the council, the prospective Luna will face a rogue of the wild. If she stands, she earns respect. If she falls, the moon goddess has spoken. Kalen's eyes flashed. She fights under my watch. One move that breaks the sanctity of the test, and I end it. Of course, my king, Marek replied smoothly, the hint of a smile giving him away. Scarlet leaned on the stone rail, voice pitched for those nearest. Perhaps the moon will finally free us from this embarrassment. Alara's stomach twisted, then steadied. She thought of Lily, small hands clutching her sleeve. You always save me. Someone has to save you too. Alara drew a breath so deep it hurt and stepped into the ring. The horn sounded. Chains scraped. A gate creaked open in the far wall, and the rogue beast stalked into the light. It was enormous, a wolf twisted by hunger and exile, fur matted with dried blood, eyes a feral red that held no pack, no reason. Scars latticed its shoulders, a steel muzzle dug into its snout, already slick where it had fought restraints. When it saw her, it lowered its head and exhaled a growl that vibrated the stones beneath her feet. A warrior tossed a short spear to Alara. It hit her palms heavier than she expected. Her hands shook. She set her stance as Kalen had taught her in the yard, left foot forward, tip low, don't blink. Kalen's voice reached her softly, only for her. Breathe, little storm. Eyes on the shoulders, not the teeth. She nodded once. The rogue gathered itself, and launched. It was like watching thunder. Alara leapt sideways, claws raked air where her chest had been. She stumbled, corrected, thrust the spear toward its flank. The beast twisted, the haft glanced off rib and slid past. She barely brought the shaft up in time to deflect a second strike. The jolt rattled up her bones. From the ridge, laughter, thin, cruel. She'll fold in a minute. Alara gritted her teeth. The rogue circled, lips peeled back, testing. She mimicked it without thinking, step for step, spear tracking the line of its shoulders. The world narrowed to breath and distance. Again it lunged. This time she met it, angling the spearhead low and catching meat. The beast shrieked and spun, blood dark on its haunch. Cheers burst from a pocket of the crowd. Kalen's wolf surged against his skin, pride and fury threading his scent. Again, he called, calm as command. Punish the turn. Elara advanced. The rogue feinted left, darted right. She read the shoulder, there, and pivoted, jamming the butt of the spear into the ground to brace and ripping the blade across its foreleg. It crashed, then rolled with terrifying grace, coming up inside her guard. Teeth flashed. She wrenched the shaft horizontal just in time. Its weight drove her backward until her spine slammed stone. Air whooshed from her lungs. The beast's breath scalded her cheek. She felt the spear flex, felt her wrists scream as she held. Through the howl in her head, another sound, Lily's voice somewhere above, high and breaking, Elara. Something hot and stubborn snapped free inside her. Elara slammed her knee into the rogue's chest, twisted, and slid beneath its bulk, scraping skin and palms on stone. She came up coughing, hair torn from its braid, blood salty on her lips. The rogue spun, maddened now, blood stringing from its jaw where the muzzle's leather had torn. On the ridge, Elder Marek murmured to another counselor, eyes glittering. If the beast loses the muzzle, all bets are off. Kalen heard it. His head turned a fraction, voice ice. If that muzzle breaks intentionally, you will answer to me. A heartbeat later, a pebble pinged from the outer wall. A tiny, almost careless sound. The muzzle's last strap, already frayed, snapped. The rogue's mouth opened, full of knives. Kalen's growl rolled through the arena like a storm front. He did not move. Not yet. Elara understood, if he stepped in now, they would say she failed. If he waited too long, she would die. She met his eyes, gold bright as a forge. He gave her the smallest nod. Trust yourself. Trust me. The beast charged. Elara ran toward it. Gasps tore the air. She slid at the last second, like a dancer cutting across a wave, and slashed the spearhead up along its belly. The blade bit. The rogue screamed, momentum carrying it past as crimson spattered stone. Elara rolled, came up to face it again, shaking, swaying, alive. The rogue wheeled, more furious than wounded, and barreled straight in, too close for the spear. Instinct did the thinking. Elara dropped the weapon, stepped inside the strike, and drove both thumbs into the beast's eyes. It shrieked, reared, paws flailing. Agony burned her hands, she tasted iron and victory. The crowd's voice surged, breaking, confused, some cheering, some cursing. Scarlet's gasp cut sharp as glass. Now. Marek hissed, too low for most. A shadow shifted near a torch, someone nudged a brazier. Coals spilled. Flame jumped on spilled oil, tonguing the edge of the ring. The rogue bucked in panic, blinded, wild, flinging itself where heat promised escape, straight toward Elara. Kalen moved. One heartbeat he was a man on the rim, the next he was inside the ring, a blur of leather and muscle. His arm hooked Elara's waist, sweeping her behind him with a gentleness that belied the force. The rogue struck, met a wall in the shape of a king. Kalen caught its jaws in both hands. Power surged off him, scent of storm and steel and oath. With a snarl that silenced the ridge, he wrenched, twisted, and drove the beast to stone. It hit with a shock that rattled teeth. Before it could find its footing, Kalen's knee pinned its chest, his forearm crushed the throat just enough to convince. The rogue thrashed, then stilled, choking. Yield, Kalen said, voice low, old magic coiling through the word. The beast shuddered, and went limp. For 3 long breaths, no one spoke. Then sound crashed back. Cheers. Protests. The feral edge of fear. Kalen rose in one fluid motion, keeping his body between Elara and the rogue, then turned, hands cupping her face, eyes devouring every inch. Are you hurt? She could only shake her head. Her legs were useless, her heart was a winged thing beating itself against bone. You said you wouldn't. I said I'd end it if they broke the sanctity. His gaze flicked to the brazier, to the smear of oil where flame had leapt. His mouth hardened. They did. Elder Marek descended 2 steps, outrage arranged like a mask. My king. You interfered in a sacred. Kalen's head snapped toward him, gold burning. You tampered. You endangered your queen. The last word rolled out deliberate, undeniable. Gasps cut the air. Scarlet paled. Whispers speared outward, queen, queen, like sparks catching. Kalen bent, retrieved the fallen spear, and pressed it into Alara's hands. When she closed her fingers, his covered them, steadying the tremor. You stood your ground, he said, voice rough with pride. You read the shoulder. You punished the turn. You lived. His thumb brushed the blood at her knuckles. Softer, you are not alone anymore. Alara swallowed against the ache rising in her throat. The ring still smelled of smoke and copper. Her hands burned. Her body shook. But when she met his eyes, the terror receded like a tide. On the ridge, power shifted, subtle as a breath. Some elders looked away. Warriors nodded to themselves. A few knelt. The trial was over. The storm was not. But tonight, beneath the torches and the watching moon, the pack had seen enough to understand a new truth. Their king would kill for her. And their would-be Luna would not run. By the time the torches guttered low around the arena, the crowd had split into currents, warriors slapping shoulders, elders whispering in tight knots, rivals gliding like eels through dark water. Word moved faster than wind, the rogue fell, the Alpha intervened, the Omega stood her ground. Queen. Some said it with awe. Others said it like a curse. Kalen kept Alara close as he escorted her from the ring, his palm warm at the small of her back, his presence a wall against the crush of bodies. Lily barreled down the steps and flung herself into Alara's arms, small fingers clutching at torn fabric. You did it. Lily's voice shook with relief. You didn't run. Alara hugged her tight, breath hitching. I wanted to, she admitted into Lily's hair, but I couldn't. Kalen's gaze touched them both, something fierce and unspoken flickering there. You won, he said simply. Did she? Elder Marek's tone sliced in as he stepped from the shadow of a pillar. His robe smelled of smoke and sanctimony. The sanctity was broken, by you, my king. The trial is void. Kalen didn't turn to face him, he angled his body to shield Alara instead. The sanctity was broken by whoever loosed the brazier, he said, voice even, the kind of calm that made wolves remember their place. Name them, and we will discuss voids. Marek's lips flattened. Accidents happen. Not tonight, Kalen said, finally meeting his eyes. Not around her. Scarlet arrived with the precision of a thrown dagger, chin high, smiles soft enough to fool the unwary. My king, your mercy is legendary, she purred. Everyone saw how you saved her. But a Luna must save herself. The pack needs a leader, not a burden. Alara felt the words like stones thrown across water, each skipping closer, each threatening to sink her. The exhaustion from the fight sat heavy in her bones, but heat licked under her skin, anger, shame, defiance, all knotted together. Before she could speak, Kalen did. Careful. The single word landed like a gauntlet. Today, my mercy was for a beast that didn't know better. I do not extend it to wolves who do. Scarlet's cheeks mottled, though her smile never cracked. Of course, my king. She dipped and drifted away, leaving the faint scent of envy in her wake. Kalen leaned, his voice for Alara alone. You're shaking. I'm standing, she whispered back. His eyes warmed. You are. He guided them toward the keep, posting warriors at the doors with a glance. Inside, the great hall simmered, less spectacle, more venom. Elders clustered beneath antler chandeliers, and political families lingered along the walls, eyes bright and hungry. Wait here, Kaelin told Alara and Lily, seating them near the hearth. Drink. Breathe. He brushed his fingers over Alara's knuckles, quick, steadying, then strode to the council table. The moment his back turned, whispers swelled. She only lived because he stepped in. Imagine a Luna who needs saving. Imagine a king who breaks law for a pretty face. Alara's spine tightened. She reached for the cup, found her hands weren't steady enough to lift it. Lily slid closer, small shoulder pressing against hers. We can leave, Lily whispered. We can hide. No, Alara said, surprised by the steel in her voice. We don't run. Across the hall, Kaelin placed both hands on the table and said, Speak. Marek obliged. The test was compromised. If you insist on this, Bond, we must require a second trial. Private, council supervised. No interference. Kaelin's gaze flicked to the oil-smudged brazier in the hands of a servant. Private trials are easier to rig. A younger counselor, Rhea, eyes too kind for the company she kept, shifted. We could accept today's outcome, she offered cautiously, and subject her to the oath of service instead, swear to protect the pack's young, tend the wounded, mediate disputes. Luna's work, not a blood sport. Scarlet reappeared at the fringe, smiling with teeth. How generous. Or we could choose a Luna born ready. Kaelin didn't glance her way. The moon goddess makes Lunas. Bloodlines make courtiers. Scarlet's smile thinned. And what do broken lines make? Traitors? The word dropped like poison. A few heads turned toward Alara. Before Kaelin could answer, Alara rose. She hadn't planned to. Her legs did it for her, fueled by every hiss and laugh and night she'd spent swallowing words to survive. She crossed the hall, not fast, she looked at Marek. If the trial was void, it was because someone decided fire belonged at my back. Not me. She turned to Scarlet, whose eyes glittered. If you want the crown, say it plain. Don't set fires and call them fate. Scarlet's mouth opened, Kaelin's hand lifted a fraction. She closed it again. Alara returned her gaze to the table. You call me burden. Maybe I am. Burdens are what a pack lifts together. If you want a Luna who has never bled, choose one from your mirrors. If you want one who won't break when you do, I'm here. I'll stand. But I won't crawl. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hearth. Then a warrior at the wall, scar down his cheek, respect in his eyes, hit his fist to his chest. Another followed. A third. The sound rolled like distant thunder. Marek's jaw locked. Poetry does not make a Luna. No, Kaelin said, pride warm enough to scorch. But spine does. He straightened. There will be no second trial. The oath of service will be sworn at moonrise. Any wolf with objections may challenge me personally. A ripple of uneasy laughter, few had the death wish. Scarlet's voice slid in one last time, silk over steel. And if the territories question a human-born Luna? If rival alphas sent weakness? Victor Drakemore is watching. Kaelin's smile was winter. Then let him watch me break his teeth. He dismissed the council with a glance, and the hall began to empty in grudging swirls. Alara exhaled only when the worst of the eyes turned away. Kaelin crossed to her, the noise dimmed as if it respected the space between them. You shouldn't have had to speak, he said softly. I had to hear myself say it, she replied. Something like relief flickered across his face. He reached for her hand, turned it palm up, and brushed his thumb over the raw skin. Moonrise, he said. We make it law. As they moved toward the corridor, Alara paused. Voices floated from a side alcove, Marek, hushed and venomous. Drakemore wanted proof of softness. Send word. Tonight. Scarlet's whisper threaded in. And the girl? A crack in stone spreads with time, Marek said. We'll make sure she shatters. Alara's heart kicked. She glanced at Kalen, fury coiled under his skin, banked but bright. Let them send word, he murmured, low enough to be a promise. Let them come. He laced his fingers with hers, and for the first time since the trial, she felt the tremor leave her bones. Behind them, smiles were being polished like blades. Ahead, the moon waited. And between those two hung a truth that would make or break a kingdom. They would not bend. They would be bent around. By the time the torches guttered low around the arena, the crowd had split into currents, warriors slapping shoulders, elders whispering in tight knots, rivals gliding like eels through dark water. Word moved faster than wind, the rogue fell, the Alpha intervened, the Omega stood her ground. Queen. Some said it with awe. Others said it like a curse. Kalen kept Alara close as he escorted her from the ring, his palm warm at the small of her back, his presence a wall against the crush of bodies. Lily barreled down the steps and flung herself into Alara's arms, small fingers clutching at torn fabric. You did it. Lily's voice shook with relief. You didn't run. Alara hugged her tight, breath hitching. I wanted to, she admitted into Lily's hair, but I couldn't. Kalen's gaze touched them both, something fierce and unspoken flickering there. You won, he said simply. Did she? Elder Marek's tone sliced in as he stepped from the shadow of a pillar. His robes smelled of smoke and sanctimony. The sanctity was broken, by you, my king. The trial is void. Kalen didn't turn to face him, he angled his body to shield Alara instead. The sanctity was broken by whoever loosed the brazier, he said, voice even, the kind of calm that made wolves remember their place. Name them, and we will discuss voids. Marek's lips flattened. Accidents happen. Not tonight, Kalen said, finally meeting his eyes. Not around her. Scarlet arrived with the precision of a thrown dagger, chin high, smiles soft enough to fool the unwary. My king, your mercy is legendary, she purred. Everyone saw how you saved her. But Aluna must save herself. The pack needs a leader, not a burden. Alara felt the words like stones thrown across water, each skipping closer, each threatening to sink her. The exhaustion from the fight sat heavy in her bones, but heat licked under her skin, anger, shame, defiance, all knotted together. Before she could speak, Kalen did. Careful. The single word landed like a gauntlet. Today, my mercy was for a beast that didn't know better. I do not extend it to wolves who do. Scarlet's cheeks mottled, though her smile never cracked. Of course, my king. She dipped and drifted away, leaving the faint scent of envy in her wake. Kalen leaned, his voice for Alara alone. You're shaking. I'm standing, she whispered back. His eyes warmed. You are. He guided them toward the keep, posting warriors at the doors with a glance. Inside, the great hall simmered, less spectacle, more venom. Elders clustered beneath antler chandeliers, and political families lingered along the walls, eyes bright and hungry. Wait here, Kalen told Alara and Lily, seating them near the hearth. Drink. Breathe. He brushed his fingers over Alara's knuckles, quick, steadying, then strode to the council table. The moment his back turned, whispers swelled. She only lived because he stepped in. Imagine a Luna who needs saving. Imagine a king who breaks law for a pretty face. Ilara's spine tightened. She reached for the cup, found her hands weren't steady enough to lift it. Lily slid closer, small shoulder pressing against hers. "We can leave," Lily whispered. "We can hide." "No," Ilara said, surprised by the steel in her voice. "We don't run." Across the hall, Kaelin placed both hands on the table and said, "Speak." Marek obliged. The test was compromised. "If you insist on this, Bond, we must require a second trial. Private, council supervised. No interference." Kaelin's gaze flicked to the oil-smudged brazier in the hands of a servant. Private trials are easier to rig. A younger counselor, Rhea, eyes too kind for the company she kept, shifted. "We could accept today's outcome," she offered cautiously, "and subject her to the oath of service instead, swear to protect the Pack's young, tend the wounded, mediate disputes. Luna's work, not a blood sport." Scarlet reappeared at the fringe, smiling with teeth. "How generous. Or we could choose a Luna born ready." Kaelin didn't glance her way. "The moon goddess makes Lunas. Bloodlines make courtiers." Scarlet's smile thinned. "And what do broken lines make? Traitors?" The word dropped like poison. A few heads turned toward Ilara. Before Kaelin could answer, Ilara rose. She hadn't planned to. Her legs did it for her, fueled by every hiss and laugh and night she'd spent swallowing words to survive. She crossed the hall, not fast, not dramatic, just steady, and stopped at the edge of the council's circle. Lily's fingers slipped away reluctantly. Heads turned. Conversations clipped off mid-breath. "Speak," Kaelin said, and the word gentled when it faced her. Ilara lifted her chin. Her voice wasn't grand, it carried anyway. "I don't ask to be Luna," she began. "I didn't write a letter or chase a crown. I washed your floors and tended pups you didn't want. I buried my pride so my sister could sleep. If worth is measured in bruises borne quietly, then I passed your test years ago." Silence settled, heavy as snow. She looked at Marek. "If the trial was void, it was because someone decided fire belonged at my back. Not me." She turned to Scarlet, whose eyes glittered. "If you want the crown, say it plain. Don't set fires and call them fate." Scarlet's mouth opened, Kaelin's hand lifted a fraction. She closed it again. Ilara returned her gaze to the table. "You call me burden. Maybe I am. Burdens are what a pack lifts together. If you want a Luna who has never bled, choose one from your mirrors. If you want one who won't break when you do, I'm here. I'll stand. But I won't crawl." For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hearth. Then a warrior at the wall, scar down his cheek, respect in his eyes, hit his fist to his chest. Another followed. A third. The sound rolled like distant thunder. Marek's jaw locked. "Poetry does not make a Luna." "No," Kaelin said, pride warm enough to scorch. "But spine does." He straightened. "There will be no second trial. The oath of service will be sworn at moonrise. Any wolf with objections may challenge me personally." A ripple of uneasy laughter, few had the death wish. Scarlet's voice slid in one last time, silk over steel. "And if the territories question a human-born Luna? If rival alphas scent weakness? Victor Drakemore is watching." Kaelin's smile was winter. "Then let him watch me break his teeth." He dismissed the council with a glance, and the hall began to empty in grudging swirls. Elara exhaled only when the worst of the eyes turned away. Kaelin crossed to her, the noise dimmed as if it respected the space between them. "You shouldn't have had to speak," he said softly. "I had to hear myself say it," she replied. Something like relief flickered across his face. He reached for her hand, turned it palm up, and brushed his thumb over the raw skin. "Moonrise," he said. "We make it law." As they moved toward the corridor, Elara paused. Voices floated from a side alcove, Marek, hushed and venomous. Drakemore wanted proof of softness. "Send word. Tonight." Scarlet's whisper threaded in. "And the girl?" "A crack in stone spreads with time," Marek said. "We'll make sure she shatters." Elara's heart kicked. She glanced at Kaelin, fury coiled under his skin, banked but bright. "Let them send word," he murmured, low enough to be a promise. "Let them come." He laced his fingers with hers, and for the first time since the trial, she felt the tremor leave her bones. Behind them, smiles were being polished like blades. Ahead, the moon waited. And between those two hung a truth that would make or break a kingdom. They would not bend. They would be bent around. The night was unnaturally still, the kind of silence that prickled along Elara's skin like a warning. The firelight from the pack's encampment flickered low, casting restless shadows over the trees. She shifted uneasily, clutching the pups closer, every instinct in her body whispering that something was coming. And then it came. A guttural growl split the air, deep and unholy, vibrating through the earth. From the shadows of the forest stepped a beast unlike any wolf Elara had ever seen. It was massive, twisted, its fur matted and scarred, its eyes glowing red with unnatural rage. This was no ordinary rogue, it was a creature born of hatred, a wolf corrupted by dark bloodlines and battle lust. The pups whimpered, pressing against her legs. Elara swallowed her terror. She knew she couldn't run, the beast was faster, hungrier. If she bolted, it would slaughter them all. Her heart thundered, but something ancient and fierce rose within her. "Not tonight," she whispered, setting the pups behind her. The beast lunged. Elara moved before she thought, ducking low, the swipe of its claws narrowly missing her face. She seized a fallen branch from the ground, its end jagged like a spear, and rammed it toward the creature's chest. The blow landed, forcing the beast back a step, but its laugh, a chilling, rasping sound, told her she had only angered it. The pack warriors nearby scrambled to form a line, but they were unprepared for such a monstrous opponent. The creature barreled through them like dry twigs snapping in a storm. Elara didn't wait. She rushed forward, her body lit by something beyond fear. An instinct she had never tapped before. Her wolf stirred inside her, clawing at her skin, begging to be freed. For the first time, she didn't push it down. She let it guide her. The beast lunged again, jaws snapping. Elara rolled aside, slashing at its flank with the branch. It howled, the scent of dark blood filling the air. She barely caught her breath before it spun and came at her again, faster this time. Its paw slammed into her side, sending her skidding across the dirt. The world tilted, but she forced herself to stand, blood dripping from her lip, fire blazing in her eyes. "You'll have to kill me before I let you touch them," she spat, voice breaking yet unyielding. The beast circled, savoring her defiance. Around them, the pack murmured in disbelief. An Omega, a Luna-to-be, standing toe-to-toe with a nightmare. It pounced. Elara braced herself, her hand steady now, the branch raised like a sword. She thrust upward as it came down on her. The jagged wood sank deep into its shoulder. The creature shrieked in pain, crashing into her with its full weight. The impact knocked her breathless, sent her sprawling beneath its bulk. Its teeth gnashed inches from her throat, hot drool hissing onto her skin. Her arms trembled as she shoved against its chest, every muscle screaming. She thought of the pups. She thought of every whispered insult, every sneer that said she was nothing. And she roared, not with fear, but with fury. Her wolf answered. Silver light flickered beneath her skin, and for a moment the beast faltered, sensing the surge of raw Luna power awakening in her. Elara shoved harder, the branch driving deeper. The rogue reeled back with a wounded howl, staggering but not defeated. She forced herself upright, chest heaving, blood staining her dress. The pack watched in stunned silence, but she didn't care about them. All she saw was the monster before her, and the knowledge that she could not let it rise again. The beast gathered itself for another strike, its fury unhinged now, its eyes fixed solely on her. And then a shadow blurred past her, colliding with the rogue in a thunderous crash. The ground shook as Kalen, in his massive midnight wolf form, pinned the beast to the earth with a snarl that shook the trees. His golden eyes burned like fire as his jaws snapped down, fangs tearing into the creature's throat. The rogue thrashed, howled, but Kalen was relentless. His power radiated, each strike fueled by primal rage and something more, fear for her. He ripped the beast from the ground, slammed it into the earth, and with a final devastating bite, ended it. The corrupted wolf went limp, its glow fading into nothingness. Silence fell. Kalen shifted back, his body slick with blood and sweat, his chest heaving. He turned to her, his face etched with fury and worry. Elara, he rasped, voice raw. He strode to her, gripping her shoulders, searching her eyes as if to make sure she was truly standing before him. Are you hurt? She tried to speak, but her throat tightened. Tears welled despite herself. I fought it, she whispered, her voice shaking. I held it off. Kalen's gaze softened, something proud breaking through his storm of rage. He brushed his thumb across the blood at her lip, his hand lingering on her cheek. You were magnificent, he murmured. Brave, and reckless. His wolf still hummed beneath his skin, wild with the need to protect, but he forced himself to stillness. Never again will you stand alone against a beast like that, he vowed, low and dangerous. If anything threatens you, it faces me first. But Elara lifted her chin, trembling yet fierce. And if it threatens you, it faces me. For a heartbeat, their gazes locked, equal parts defiance, devotion, and the undeniable truth of the bond tightening between them. The pack looked on, stunned, whispers spreading through the night. Their Luna was no fragile ornament. She was fire. Kalen drew her close, the pups squealing as they clung to her legs. His voice was only for her now, softer than the night breeze. You're mine, Elara, he said. And tonight, the pack saw why. The battlefield still smelled of blood and smoke, the earth torn where the rogue had. Then, with a shuddering breath, he forced himself to stand. He turned away, fists clenched, as though staying near her might undo him completely. You need rest, he said, his voice strained. I'll station guards outside. Nothing will touch you again. Elara's chest ached at the distance he placed between them. And yet, beneath the frustration, there was warmth, a flicker of hope. He wasn't just her alpha. He was a man who saw her, who feared losing her, who cared. As she lay back on the furs, exhaustion pulling at her, she felt his presence linger at the edge of the tent. Watching. Protecting. Fighting the bond with every ounce of will he had. Her wolf stirred inside her, whispering what she already knew. No matter how hard Kalen tried to resist, fate was pulling them together. And soon, neither of them would be able to deny it. The camp was alive with whispers when dawn broke. The rogue beast's carcass had been dragged away, but its presence still hung heavy in the air. And heavier still was the sight burned into every wolf's memory, Elara standing tall, bloodied yet unbowed, defying death to protect the Alpha King's pups. Yet, not all whispers were kind. She's only an Omega. She'll get us all killed. She bewitched him. The murmurs cut through the morning like knives. Elara kept her chin high, but each word gnawed at her heart. Kaelin walked beside her, his towering presence silencing many, but not all. The council's elders stood waiting in the clearing, their expressions grim. Elder Rovan stepped forward, voice sharp as steel. Alpha Kaelin, this pack has followed you through blood and fire. But to name her as Luna? A traitor's daughter, an Omega with no lineage? It weakens us in the eyes of every pack who watches. Kaelin's eyes blazed gold. He stepped into the circle, his voice booming with alpha command. She stood where seasoned warriors fell. She bled to protect what is mine. Tell me, which of you has done the same? The crowd shifted uneasily. None could answer. But before Kaelin could continue, Elara stepped forward. Her heart raced, but her voice was steady, clear enough for all to hear. You call me weak because of the blood I was born with. You call me unworthy because of scars I did not choose. But last night, when the rogue beast came, it was not bloodlines or crowns that stopped it, it was love. Love for this pack. Love for the pups who will one day lead you. Love for the home I refuse to let fear take from us. Her words hung in the air, sharp and radiant. The murmurs faded into silence. Then she turned to Kaelin, her emerald eyes locking onto his golden gaze. The bond between them flared like wildfire. I am not afraid to stand at your side, Kaelin. If the pack doubts me, let them see with their own eyes the truth the moon goddess has already written. A hush swept the clearing. Kaelin's chest rose and fell, his wolf thrumming so loud the ground seemed to vibrate with it. He reached for her hand, his voice rough but sure. Elara, my wolf chose you long before my mind did. Before the pack. Before the world. And today, I claim you, not as a burden, not as an Omega, but as my Luna. He tilted back his head and howled. The sound was thunder, command, and devotion woven together. His warriors answered, their voices rising in a chorus that shook the skies. The ceremony began. The elders, bound by tradition, could not deny the Alpha King's will. Torches were lit in a circle around the clearing, firelight merging with silver beams of the rising moon. The pack gathered, hundreds of eyes watching as Kaelin and Elara stepped into the center. Elara's knees trembled, but Kaelin's hand in hers was steady, unyielding. Together, they knelt before the sacred stone, ancient runes glowing faintly beneath the lunar light. The elder seer, voice quivering with awe, spoke the words of binding. Under the light of the moon goddess, before pack and blood, Alpha and Luna shall unite. Their bond is eternal, their strength shared. As one rises, so shall the other. As one bleeds, so shall the other heal. Kaelin turned to Elara, cupping her face with hands that trembled despite his control. His voice dropped to a whisper, meant only for her. One word, Elara, and I'll stop. You will never be forced into my bond. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but her smile broke through. I've been waiting my whole life to belong. And it was never to them, Kaelin, it was always to you. With a growl that was both man and wolf, Kaelin lowered his mouth to her neck. The moment his teeth grazed her skin, the bond snapped into place with searing heat and blinding light. Silver and gold flared from their joined souls, wrapping them in a halo of power that left the pack gasping. Elara cried out, not from pain but from a rush of wholeness she'd never known. Every doubt, every scar, every whisper of unworthiness burned away in that fire. She was Luna. She was his. And he was hers. When Kaelin lifted his head, his lips brushed her ear. "Mine," he growled, voice shaking with reverence. "And yours," she whispered back, steady and sure. The pack erupted. Some howled in awe, others bowed their heads, and even the fiercest doubters fell silent beneath the undeniable force of a true mate bond. The pups bounded into the circle, tumbling against Alara's skirts, their little howls joining the chorus. Kalen drew her into his arms, lifting her so the entire pack could see. His voice carried like thunder. "This is your Luna. The heart of your pack. The flame that will guide us into the future." The howls that answered shook the forest, a wall of sound rising to the heavens. For the first time in her life, Alara felt no shame, no fear, no doubt. She stood in the circle of firelight, claimed before the pack, her soul bound to the Alpha King. And as the moon bathed them in silver glow, she knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of something greater than either of them had ever imagined. The outcast Omega had become the Queen of Wolves.